everybody. Welcome to this webinar organized by the Innovation Hub in Tourism, Arts and Heritage from the Ulysses network, the Ulysses European Alliance. The topic that we will discuss together with 4 experts that we have invited to join us is focusing on how transferring interdisciplinary competences will ease the job, the activities, the research in heritage studies. It's quite important topic, I would say, and this is the reason why we ask people from 3 different partner universities to join us and to tell us their experience on the topic. We'll have 4 speakers: Professor Zucchiatti, that is a physicist, that is working with us in a specific interdisciplinary program that we are offering at UNIGE. We have Professor Lidia Carosa, that is an expert in cultural economics and management, and again is studying heritage from a social science perspective and trying to understand different issues correlated with that. We have Professor Stagno, who is again an expert in the cultural and archaeology methodologies, and she will assess her point of view on that respect, and Professor Romero, that is actually applying different IT and new technologies applied to humanities and heritage studies. So quite good group of people and experts that will allow us to discuss this topic in deep and hopefully intrigue prospective students as well as current stakeholders that are looking for new competencies, a way to solve current issues in the heritage industry. These webinars is offered as part of the Compass project. Compass is one of the many collaborations within Ulysses network that would like to boost competences, research, and innovation activities within the Ulysses partner, hopefully allowing Ulysses to strengthen its position as an excellence in both teaching, education, training, and research. As mentioned, the webinar is offered by the Innovation Hub, a structure within Ulysses that would like to leverage to current competences in sustainability, arts, tourism, and heritage in order to promote new ways to both perceive, engage, and do activities within our reference industries. Our goal as Innovation Hub is obviously changing the current programs in order to make them more aligned with the future challenges, as well as promoting collaboration among the members and their stakeholders. And hopefully these obviously will allow us, this webinar will allow us to achieve our goal. For instance, providing and serving the industry and consumer with new ideas on how to improve the current status. But why we decided to go on with this topic? Well, we thought about what our stakeholders are looking at, what are the needs highlighted by related international organizations in terms of heritage management, and we felt that either if you're perceiving heritage and historical sites as a way for boosting alternative services, so to make them creating value at local level, obviously the arena in Verona is a brilliant example of that, or if you like to preserve current sites in order to preserve and make sustainable the different sites. And again, we have worldwide example of that needs that allow obviously people expert in arts, in the cultural heritage, the need for knowing a bit more about the hard science that allow them to preserve sites or to discover new wonders, because at the end of the day, a lot of the jobs connected with archaeology, arts, and preservation are actually interdisciplinary approaches. We already offer those mixed studies, and probably the expert of the future, the needs of the future will need more and more of these interdisciplinary approaches. So because of that, we investigated that we need the industry. There is a growing need in terms of manpower, in terms of experts, competencies, and skills in order to allow the new effort of conservation. But there are also new forms of arts that require knowledge of IT and physics. Obviously, whenever we talk about sustainability, we think that, and we should also connect with a need for a comprehensive understanding of the current heritage management that goes beyond the social sciences or the hard sciences itself. Education and research have been siloed in many fields, not just in arts and heritage, okay? So that was an historical issue, but now there is a new tendencies promoted by relevant international organizations in promoting activities, training, education, research that are connected with the challenge to be solved rather than topics, fields, or themes, okay? That is true for general education, is even more true for arts and heritage, okay? So that's the reason why we said, okay, are we as Ulysses aligned with these new needs? Can we push forward these trends and exploit our competences in order to serve more our communities? And the rationale, the goal of this webinar is exactly discuss these. What is going on within Ulysses? Is this aligned with the industry needs? And what we can do more? What is there and more? Hopefully with our 4 experts, we will be able to discuss this and more connected with current experiences within Ulysses, what is needed, what our experts are feeling as we are able to provide, and what can be provided, mixing up our competences, and how is this reflecting in our research and in our stakeholder engagement activities. In order to discuss these, I would like to give the floor to the first speaker. Professor Zucchiatti,
yes.
Are you online?
I am. Don't you see me? Okay.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay.
If you could share your screen and allow us to know more about what we are doing at UNIGE.
Okay. Can you see the presentation you do?
Not at the moment, but
I've my screen.
No. At the moment, we are not.
Okay, so what's happening? Okay, then where is it? Oh, okay. That's pantalla. Okay, it's my mistake. Sorry. This is what I want to present. Okay, and now you should see it full screen.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, now
yeah.
That's fine. Whoops, back again. So the question is how to transfer interdisciplinary competencies in heritage studies. And I will give you the view, my personal view, which is the view of an analyst who has started from fundamental nuclear physics and ended up in material physics as a concern mainly with the analysis of the objects of our cultural heritage. So it is something that regards both experience and also education in the specific application of science to the cultural heritage. The starting point, I mean, everybody knows, but I mean, it's not. Is useful to remember is that what I'm talking about, of course, being an analyst of the material cultural heritage, which is one of the 2 arms of the cultural heritage, is immaterial and material. I'm talking about the material cultural heritage. In that respect, each object of each artwork of our cultural heritage is a repository for me of an history of man, an history of techniques, an history of skills, and it's an history which is running with time over several chapters, which are the creation, the use, the abandon, the restoration, and the conservation as well. The creation is linked to the fact that the artist, the artisan, selects materials. It tells us what else it has been done to connect, to convert some of the raw materials into better products to produce what is wanted to be produced, and also is a story of the creation, the creator's choices. I mean, his skill, his personal skill. But once the object is then delivered for the fruition or for the day use, then it starts to modify. As soon as it is produced, the object starts to modify because it is submitted to transformation due to chemical and physical processes, or simply to the environment, to the interaction with the environment. It comes a time when then it is abandoned and cease to be of any use. It is transferred to another environment, which is probably the soil in some dump, and it's changing again due to the other physical and other chemical interaction with the environment, until it is maybe discovered, or maybe after some centuries of use, we decide to intervene on it, reconstruct it, or restore it. And reconstruct it and restore it means that you are using new materials again, and some chemical and physical interaction of this new material with the original ones take place. And then you have the task of conserving these materials and transmit it to the future generation as part of our human history. All this is something which can be investigated, because we have the techniques to investigate any of these steps and try to reconstruct the full history of our object. To do so, it is we are bound to some scheme which I try to underline in this slide. Knowing the history of the cultural heritage object offers, first of all, insights in the ability and speciality of an artisan, of an artist. Allows a better understanding of the training of materials across territories and epochs. It opens a window on past habits, on past traditions, and thanks to a cultural promoter, all this knowledge that we have acquired can be transferred outside of the system of the investigation to increase the interest that that object has, and then give value, as you reminded. So the cultural promoter is one way, one mean of transferring outside of the analytical system or the conservation system to the general public, the interdisciplinary knowledge that has been acquired by this kind of analysis. Of course, it requires the ability of looking instrumentally for the information hidden at a low scale in the samples, which can be done starting from, say, for example, the USB digital microscope that you buy at 26.99 euros on Amazon. Of course, excluded the smartphone and the monitor, and you can go up to the use of a very specialized machine like a synchrotron that has a building cost of 201 million compared to the 27.99 euros, and as a running cost, nearly a running cost of 40 million euros, more or less. In the middle, there is a panoply of instruments and performances, which needs, of course, an investigation, a structured, multidisciplinary approach to the object knowledge and conservation. So it needs essentially another figure to transfer this multidisciplinary knowledge, to help the transferment of this multidisciplinary knowledge inside the conservation system. The curator, of course, is the prime responsible for the object. The object is at the center of everything. The curator is the first responsible of the object. Then the conservation scientist, this new figure that is taking place, and we need to develop to large numbers, is the interface between the curator and the object itself, to assist with the analysis and transfer this scientific information to the curator. It is also the interface between the curator and some specialized or some specialist or external laboratory that they can add to this knowledge a little bit. and also could be the interface with the cultural promoter, although the curator is probably directly linked to the cultural promoter without the need of the conservation scientist. So this conservation scientist is for me one of the figures that is necessary to develop this interdisciplinary knowledge and to transfer this knowledge to the different entities involved in the entire conservation of an object. It is so important that our government has issued a decreto legge, a law that disciplines the registration of the or register of national expert in diagnostic of science and technology applied to the cultural heritage. In two simple words, is a conservation scientist. It gives some indication of what this could be, and I would like to underline the fact that there is an excess in these norms that they dictate of collaborate and under supervision. So this means that under supervision means that the central figure in the scheme that I highlighted before, and which is corresponding to this one, is the curator, but that the conservation scientist has the task of collaborating and helping us structuring management of laboratories and applying techniques to the study of the cultural heritage. But also it has a task of collaborate and teach about what is his part, his role in the entire process of conservation. How do we create, or how do we care of this kind of figure, of which probably every one of us belongs already, having followed each one his own pathway. It is a question of try to systematize the pathways depending on what undergraduate student and graduate student you have done. It may be that you've come from an undergraduate education in technical and scientific fields, or in classical, artistic, or other economic, accounting fields, language fields, or so on and so forth. You can proceed to graduate studies given by our universities, either coherently, so starting from technical and scientific, remaining in the Faculty of Science, or starting from classical, remaining in the Faculty of Arts, or you can have a crossover year. So from classical, choose a Faculty of Science, from technical, choose a Faculty of Arts, and then create a multidisciplinary environment, at least from the topics that are typical for the Faculty of Science and the Faculty of Arts. In any case, whatever you have done, it is at master study that I believe you could really progress on what you can do, because at the Faculty of at the Faculty of Science in the Master of Studies, I believe that laboratory practice and data handling, which are typical of some figure that has come from a scientific career, are important to this kind of multidisciplinary approach to the cultural heritage. You must know that handling wasn't not for just for reading an experiment to the results of an experiment, but also to create databases which are extremely important for the understanding, the whole understanding of our cultural heritage and the links between the different problems. And then integration of basic knowledge. It means that you can at this point, you must at this point interact with the professional diversity that is involved in the conservation of cultural heritage, which come from historians, from restorers, from geologists, chemists, physicists, technical, and most important to me to create this figure of conservation science, work on real cases. And so I ask myself if the university could offer professional diagnostic campaigns run by students under strict supervision, which would be already at the master studies level a real immersion in what is needed to share this multidisciplinary knowledge in the conservation process. We at the University of Genova have an activity that you probably know. I would like only to underline that a master course in this sense, one of the 7 that are allowed in Italy, includes earth science, physics, chemistry, material science, biology, but there is also quite a space for arts, because it is not it is important to maintain at least a knowledge of what the history of techniques, how the history of techniques has evolved, or now the history of painting has evolved, and we leave training available, free choice, biology, and a thesis which is normally performed under in collaboration with company, institution, and private labs on an experimental side. So on one side, the practical activity, sorry, it disappeared. Sorry, I've lost that. Is it okay? It's back again. Ooh. Can you see my?
Yeah. We can.
You see the slides? Okay. Let me go at the end. So what I'm saying here is that the practical activity must be in a distinctive mark of our, as it is in our course. Intense laboratory activity is one need. Multidisciplinary external training activity in collaboration with museum, archaeologists, and conservation is imperative, and the applicative end of a master thesis is important. And last but not least, the international collaboration that opens a window on how this practice can be put into being. With that, I think I have finished. I only had 10 minutes. I'm ready to take questions, and I hope I've given you the view of an analyst, which is, repeat, I started from fundamental nuclear physics and ended up with applying accelerator physics to the cultural heritage. Interfering a lot. This part here has been important, and this part here is also important.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, for your insights on the topic and for presenting something that is already in place in Niger, and obviously it's one of the things that is perfectly on purpose, I would say, in respect with what we would like to discuss now. And obviously opens a lot of careers, not just locally, but at international level, because again, some of the needs are not just relevant for Italy. Thank you very much. And on that sense, in terms of the relevance in different places and in different ways, I would like to give the floor to our colleague, Professor Heldia Rosa from the University of Sevilla, that is presenting, I would say, the same problem in a completely different context and apply into a completely different challenge. Jesus, it's your time.
One moment, please.
Yep.
Do you see my screen?
We can see your screen.
Yes,
It's not a full screen, and but yes, we can. I would like to remind everybody to switch off the mic, please.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. In first place, I want to say thank you to the Ulysses University, because for me it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And now I would like to speak about my research items. I started in a multidisciplinary way to study the relation between economic, law, and intangible heritage, using the example of flamenco. And now also I am studying cultural policy and education, always using the specific case of flamenco and explaining the case of intangible heritage and cultural popular culture. The first time I would like to speak about the multidimensionality of cultural heritage, of cultural value, using the example of flamenco. Flamenco for me is very important because it's a very specific example that you can use for other subjects like salsa, jazz, blues, etc. Other kind of of music, no? You can see here how through different methodologies we try to measure this cultural value through the feelings, is the dimension of emotional value, composition elements, you know, the lyrics, melody, etc. You can study from the cognitive value or the virtuosity of the artist through the aesthetic value. You can also study the legacy value, the pure economic value of a work of art, etc. In this case, I try to study also the artist's right. Why? Because in Spain and in all the intellectual property regulation, we have a problem. Because in popular culture, in intangible heritage, the performer add creativity to the work. What happened? For example, in Spain, you have the book 1 that represent copyright law, and you have only the authors. And also you have book 2 for performers, artists, producers, and technical aspect. So in this case, we have a problem. Why? Because the performer add creativity to the work, and it is not covered by copyright. What happened? We have a subsidiary solution through the Article 132 in Spain that you can use some issues of book 1 to the performer. Okay, I speak very fast, but in 10 minutes it's impossible to explain everything. I want to explain two different parts, the moral rights and also the patrimonial rights. What happened with the performer? The performer only have the paternity and integrity right, but the authors also have the modification, the removal from the market, the legal disclosure. So in this case, the performer, who is the face of the music, don't have a lot of rights like the removal from the market. You can imagine some examples like Coldplay use his music for, no, sorry, Donald Trump used music from Coldplay without his permission. What happened? Coldplay was author, so they could remove it from the market. But you can imagine if you are only performer, you are the face, and you cannot remove it. Also, patrimonial rights. We have 4 different patrimonial rights: reproduction, communication, distribution, and transformation. The performer doesn't have the transformation right. This doesn't make sense because in popular culture, in tangible heritage, the oral tradition is fundamental. So the performer transforms continually the work in order to add its creativity. Also, the duration is other problem because the duration for the rights in the copyright for the author is 70 years after their death. But for the performers, it's only 70 years from the point that they disclosure the work. So it's a substantial difference between performers and authors. Also, we have here different parts of the creation process. You have the cultural heritage, the author, the performer, and the author takes from cultural heritage the harmony and rhythm, add the melody and lyrics, and create the composition that arrive to the performer, who add the creativity or differentiating talent. And finally, through the externalization, we have the flamenco musical work or musical work in general. After that, you have the labor of record companies, platforms like Spotify or the market. What happened here? The author is protected by copyright, but the rest of the agents, performer, manager, platform, etc., they are protected by new volume rights. So they have less rights than the copyright. Also, I would like to speak very fast about public policies for culture. It's very important for us to know the cultural value. As I explained before, we try to explain the cultural value taking into account the multidimensionality, because it's essential in order to understand the heritage. After, we can speak about the economic value through the incomes, jobs, and brand and image of the city. It is regional science. And finally, the social value. It's very important here, the creativity for the future and the diversity for the social value, effects on quality of life, identity, and positive cultural interactions that improve coexistence in the city. So the cultural values must, the cultural policies must facilitate and promote the community's first contact with the cultural festival in order to generate knowledge about the nature. Also, an efficient communication plan to inform the community about the impacts on the festival on the territory, setting its intangible heritage at the center of the festival. Sustainability preserves the authenticity of the binding ties with the territory and local idiosyncrasy, and the logistic management of the festival matters. The access and comfort of the place where it takes place are key in the evaluation. In this case, for cultural policies, we use the specific example of the festivals. Why? Because the festival has a specific effect in the region, okay, and also for the community. So we try to use the cultural policies in order to create a good festival, an efficient festival, and overall and sustainable festival. Finally, in my last research, we try to explain the implementation of studies about cultural heritage in educational curriculum. Now, in Andalusia, in my region, we are speaking about the possibility to add flamenco to the educational curriculum. What's happened? The people who can teach flamenco, in this case, the artist, they don't have any title, official title. They learned their knowledge about flamenco by the oral communication, by the oral transmission. What happened now? They cannot participate in this thing, in this implementation to the curriculum. So we have research about the perception of future teachers about flamenco. They think that it's important to implement flamenco in the educational curriculum because you have different abilities like heritage appraisal, musical, emotional, educational, social, and cultural participation skills for the student. You have a lot of effects in this sense. But what happened? They don't know anything about flamenco. So they need aid. They need help. And who can give this help, in my opinion? The artist. What happened? They cannot be professor. Of course, they cannot be professor because they are artists and they don't have an official title. But they can support in the curriculum, educational curriculum. So we think that we can create an analogy between the conversation aid, that is an official figure in Spain. For example, if we need people from England in order to support to the professor of English in the school, they don't have any title. They are in the majority of the case students. We can use this analogy in order to implement a flamenco aid in the classroom. And in this kind of things, I think the artist can support the education of flamenco. And also, of course, we need to use the technological resources like virtual education, etc. I think my time is over. So
Thank you very much, Jesus, for this interesting presentation and how you might mix up practical competencies, I would say, with the theoretical one and the values. value of education in a higher level. Now it's the time of another colleague of mine, Professor Stagno. Please, Anna, could you?
Yes, I am here. I'm sharing my screen.
Perfect.
Okay. Yes, now I have just to find.
Go, yeah, the full screen.
Yes. Yes, I was trying to share, to put it full screen.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And sorry, I don't know how to move you. Maybe if I do it. Okay. Okay, no. Okay. Thank you very much for Alessio and Cleo for inviting me to this really interesting seminar. And as my colleagues before, I will share with you some experience around the interdisciplinarity in the heritage studies, and I will speak about what I study more, that is that are rural areas and their heritage. We could speak about living rural heritage because we know that in everywhere, but maybe in mountain areas, is something that it is sometimes we could forget that heritage is a construction that arrived from the past, and we have the opportunity, we have every day to decide how to transmit it in the future. And in rural areas we are facing from many years, but now European community and many institutions are strongly thinking about it, because there is a problem that is abandonment. So I will speak about interdisciplinarity and abandonment. And I think that in the study of heritage, they could be connected from the historical perspective. And I would like to share with you some experience of research that is also some application of this idea of interdisciplinarity that already become a training path, but for the doctoral students. And so just something that we have many problems when we speak about heritage, because heritage is something that we think fix, but we have the problem with the heritization processes. And so on what we decide to consider heritage, and we could speak, but it is not the place of what is heritage and what we want to define, how we define it. We have many conventions that are helping or not. For the rural areas, the Landscape Convention and the Faro Convention mostly. But what it means for rural areas? As I said, it is impossible in rural areas disconnect, separate landscape, heritage, environmental resources, and the social practices which allowed to build it and to manage and to preserve it. But now, as I said, we have many problems with abandonment that not means only abandonment, the population, but also the loss of the cultural values of our heritage, cultural values in terms of historic landscape, with the cultural interest, in terms of the destruction of landscapes, and of course, many problems for the security of the person, and also the disappearing, as I said, of the landscape. And this problem, and for this is important to take it into consideration, because heritage in rural areas is not just something we could use, or we could appreciate, but it is needed to be constructed every time. So when we study cultural heritage in the mountain, but I think everywhere we have many problems to consider: how to preserve it, how to conserve it, what we want to preserve. And so we have to face to the problem of abandonment. And in this case, abandonment is a social process, a social process, but with many environmental consequences in terms of the reduction of biodiversity, that is also cultural values, the disappearing of monuments, of buildings, of historic hamlets, and so on, and of course of historic rural landscapes. But as I said, when we start to speak about heritage in rural areas, we arrive in the world of the territorial justice, because if there is a possibility to preserve that kind of heritage, it is through the consideration of the population dynamics. This is just a picture that make, I hope, visible the connection between population dynamics, organization of settlements, and environmental dynamics related to the abandonment and the changes in environmental resources management. And then we have also to face another problem, that is that many times rural mountain areas are considered natural, but they are not so natural. What we see today is the result of a long process of abandonment. So if we go inside the nature, we see what is abandonment with all its environmental and economic consequences, and cultural, as I said. But why I'm saying it? Because many money has been spent in this framework and also in the cultural heritage of rural areas, but as many separate aspects without connection. And this is a process, a problem of training, because if until we will not give to the young generation of researchers, of workers in cultural heritage, and so on, of policymakers, the possibility to understand the intimate connection between the phenomena, it will be really difficult to take them into consideration. So in the University of Genoa, we try to answer to this problem through a doctoral program, which was founded by the European Commission in the framework of the Mary Sklodowska-Curie actions. And we are trying to organize, and it is truly, truly difficult, an interdisciplinary training that is not to not have a disciplines, because we could make interdisciplinarity when we are grounded in a discipline, but we need to be open, to have our eyes open to the other and to the consequences of what we are doing in our discipline. The main one is this, but the connection that rural archaeology has are with many, many elements of the other that are listed here. And of course, it is something that is reciprocal. And we are trying to do it. It is a bet. We are in the second year of our project, so we still don't know what will happen. But it is just something to say that there are many connections when we consider the heritage that open the possibility to other consideration and to further exploration of the interdisciplinarity aspect of our heritage. And this is another, but I have no time. This is another way to consider the interdisciplinarity of the rural heritage, that is the historical research, and to understand the present processes through an historical perspective, try considering the abandonment of as a process of marginalization of the mountain societies. And also in this case, it is needed interdisciplinarity to make visible the connection between phenomena that risk to be studied without considering their interconnection. But how it could help also to make visible the producers of the heritage that are not people that are studying in the academia. Now, farmers are studying, of course, also in the academia, but it is something that is also related to the relationship between generation, the transmission of knowledge between generation, the knowledge of the places. That is something we cannot make everything in the same way everywhere. We have to have a locally based perspective also in our idea of interdisciplinarity. And to end, another experiment we are doing that is particularly focused on the heritage, and that try to put in the center the idea, the concept of the living rural heritage, and to organize training courses, not for students. We are working also for students, but with policymakers and cultural operators, because we think that it is possible to connect also what is still existing and to open new paths in what we are considering the rural heritage. And it is something urgent because many part of our cultural heritage in mountain and simply disappearing. And so I'm ending here and really thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hannah, for this really interesting contribution. I think we passed through a master degree to more mixing up local heritage with different kind of training and education approaches, and now we are going to research and PhDs. That is the last end of our education path. And now we go a bit more on the approaches, I would say, with another colleague from the University of Costa Azur, Professor Romero. Margherita, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Then I'm really happy to join you in this seminar. On the aspect, I want to just give a very brief elements in order to have some minutes of discussion. I will go very fast on the aspects that already has been stressed by Alessandro and Anna on interdisciplinary need, but the need to be really rooted in a certain field in order to develop these collaborations, and also on the importance that for educational purposes, as Jesus has put on the discussion, is sometimes the persons who have the knowledge are not the ones who are on the educational arena. Okay, then this is I'm on the learning science, but I'm a bastard working with a lot on with colleagues on the digital science, because one of the aspects of the elements we are developing is game-based learning and digital game-based learning, which is a way also to design research experiences, but also to engage communities in supporting different topics as cultural heritage. And I'm thinking on the work also of the Genoa colleagues as Francesco Velotti and his team, who have this expertise on this area of using serious games for these purposes. The main focus on the main red line on the different research we develop is quality education, and considering the multi-levels, then at the level of the learner, the teacher, but also the communities, the territory, but also our joint development goals that we are having together. And then we are developing for research purposes different techno-creative activities to support. We focused on 5 competencies. First of all, critical thinking. This is one of the most important competencies, interdisciplinary competencies in our side, because this is why this is the compass. This is the compass that will help also the persons in the communities and teachers, but also the learners, to be part of a community, to value the cultural heritage in this community, but also to take care in a sustainable way of how we can not just be sustainable, but even within the last years, we are even embracing regenerative cultures as a way not just of exploiting resources and humans, but as a way to develop communities and systems that can help to regenerate and avoid these exploitative paradigms. The way we develop these different projects, and there's some links for these different projects, I will not go into them, is about considering participatory co-creation, then how through the use of technologies, but also technologies in the sense of analogical, but also in the terms of digital technologies, we can support artifact creation that is solution oriented. For example, kids that are engaged in a certain problem, like a problem of traffic jams in their area, can model with these different technologies solutions that can be proposed to other stakeholders. Okay, then this has been applied also to the cultural heritage aspects in order to help kids modeling the different these different aspects in terms of either architectural aspects that be built through models, but also to take into account stories that are digitalized and being supported as different creations, either as digital storytelling or as digital game-based learning. We have helped it to develop different workshops with the purpose of facilitating this process and to help teachers in order to integrate this objective in the classroom. Then card-based activities are our initial starting level, but then on undergraduate education, we are working in digital game creation. On the cultural heritage, one of the aspects that has been working very well is the intergenerational game design, in which persons who have a certain knowledge on the area or certain topics are working with younger generations, and then the transmission of these elements are made in a way that is aiming to create a digital artifact together. Then some of them bring more digital competencies, others bring more cultural competencies, and the work of these persons together towards the objective of designing a game is part of the activity. Then our work on the research perspective is also about how facilitate this game design activity, how we can structure the different steps, and how we can make these persons to collaborate together. When we are focusing on this research, we are not in all research, we are not stressing all aspects, and in some aspects is more related to the game mechanics, in others to the learning experience with games. Then we are focusing on different areas. And the last thing I want to share is that we are really happy to work with different colleagues from Uliseus, and we have worked with the colleagues of the Faculty of Education in Sevilla, with modular robotics, that is a creative problem-solving activity that allows also to engage participants from age 7 to no age, and then to older participants in situations of problem-solving together. Then many thanks for your time, and I hope I allow to save some minutes for discussion all together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Well, this is really interesting presentation, as I was saying. It's more an approach and a quite interesting one that probably can be quite useful, not just for arts and heritage, I would say. Thank you. We did actually, well, I prepared a few questions, but we did receive a lot of other questions on YouTube. And I would actually ask you a bit more with one specific questions that was focusing on Jesus' presentation, but can be actually connected in a more general way. It is obvious, I would say, that arts and heritage can be leveraging on, I would say, hard sciences. Okay, while quite often the legal aspect or the regulation and the law are as much relevant as the hard sciences. And that is also connected with our local communities, because we do live within the European Union umbrella, but we do have different constraints and limits coming from our local rules, regulation, and cultural issues. Is this something that you will envision as a priority in the future, and how? Or is something that will kind of phase out due to us becoming more used to work together, to live together, to do things together?
In my opinion, Alessio, it's very important to research these kind of things, because for the moment we don't have empirical research about the regulation, about the implementation of law. In my thesis, we try to explain this gap between protection and value. If you have a lot of value in the performance, why is not protected? But at the end of my research, I had a conclusion, and the conclusion is very easy. If you want to be a good lawyer, a good regulation designer, you need to know the reality. If you don't know the reality, it's impossible to construct a good law in order to implement in this kind of things, because it's very specific. So if you want to protect the cultural heritage, you must know the reality. And the local reality is fundamental in the popular culture, for example.
Is this relevant? How would you tackle for the other three speakers? Is Anna, Margarita, Alessandro, do you want to?
I didn't get the question.
Local constraints such as regulation, law, cultural aspects are something that are relevant for how you would envision interdisciplinarity in arts and heritage, because it's something that we probably give for granted, but we don't. It's obvious the connection with art sciences.
I mean, having taken a point of view from as a teacher and as an analyst, I see locality of our investigation the best way to produce training. So we should interact, we must interact with local museum, local superintendencies, whatever is in the area, because of course this is also part of the university mission, in the sense that you are there not only to teach, but also to enrich the community of which you belong to. And in that case, I mean, the law restrictions may be really limiting your action. Of course, the law restriction have to find the balance between your wills and your needs, and the other citizens' wills and needs, and the other categories' wills and needs, and we must disseminate and explain very well what our problems are, and what the impact of our activity is on the local authorities, to get comprehension and say eventually a general framework of law regulation framework that helps our activity while helping the local growth, the growth of the interest in locally.
Thank you. Since we are 1:31, so we are 1 minute late. Just a quick answer from Margarita and Anna. Is it better to train, or easier to train one guy that knows all, or interdisciplinarity is better to be tackled as a group with experts separately? What is the way that which we should pursue for the future in arts and heritage, especially?
Yeah, in our perspective, is about not trying to make persons who knows all things, then jacks of all trades. It's about also allowing humans to develop expertise on the areas of their choice, even for teachers, then don't asking teachers to do everything on the world. But it's about creating communities in which there are different expertise, ecosystems, rich ecosystems, in which these persons learns to collaborate. Then our focus is about collaboration skills and critical thinking skills. About it's not necessarily a human to be a superhuman. This is not sustainable. It's about being aware about who has the expertise on each area, and then be able to collaborate together. And I think we have a lot of work to learn to better collaborate.
I completely agree with Margarita, because interdisciplinarity is interdisciplinarity, no somebody who know everything that now is impossible. Maybe Dante know everything, but now it is not possible for our life. So we need to be able to collaborate, but we need also to learn to teach in an interdisciplinary way, that is to open the eyes, to try the students to understand that I'm speaking of these things, but take into consideration that then this aspect is also related to other teams. Sometimes we are so focused on our problem that we forgot the world around us. And I think that this remembering, this memo about the world could be a way to start to grow in interdisciplinarity. And I think that there is a really strong request of interdisciplinary society by the European Commission. There are fundings. We are with this next generation Europe, we are, well, I don't find the word, but to understand. So I think that now is the time to try to do something without forget the discipline.
Thank you.
Historical research.
Thank you very much. I think that is a strong message. We need interdisciplinarity, but not a guy that knows all, because it's impossible, but a guy that understands others and has the competence and skills to understand others and to speak the same language, understand how to solve problems. I would like to thank you all for being here today. I know for the comments and inputs that we received from the other online platforms that, well, everybody has a lot of questions on their own presentation, and we will share those inputs and comments. And if it's possible, we will obviously allow the speakers to answer to those questions asynchronously, obviously. But I would like really to thank you all for being part of this webinar that, again, I hope will increase both the awareness of the need for interdisciplinarity and the awareness of what we do as Ulysses to pursue these as part of our pursuit for excellence in arts, tourism, and heritage. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Ciao Alessio, ciao Clio.
Thank you. Grazie.